you will discover that the national debt is a wonderful thing for corporations and rich people, but not for you, and not for me. For us, it's an immense ripoff. It turns out, as I will show you, that it's just a disguised tax. You might call it a postponed tax. I'll explain all that, and then you'll understand why we are, as a nation, in many trillions of dollars of deficit this year, on top of much more in the way of trillions of dollars of accumulated national debt. And we are not in any way unusual among countries in doing this. It is a big capitalist problem. When capitalism came into existence, there were already national debts. But capitalism, far from solving or removing or fixing the problem, made it infinitely worse. Here in the United States, for example, one of the biggest sources of government borrowing reveals what's going on. Let me tell you about it. When governments do something that is unpopular, that large numbers of people and maybe even majorities don't want and don't like, that's when they borrow. I'll give you an example. The biggest amount of borrowing is typically happening when the United States, and this is not again unusual among countries, goes to war. Wars are often things Americans don't want, don't like. Or maybe at the beginning they do in patriotic fervor, but not for long. Governments kill people. Governments hurt people. And governments in war don't just kill people and hurt people in war, but they cost a lot of money. So the question becomes in every war, for example, right now, the war in Ukraine, which is fought by Ukrainians and Russians, but is funded by the United States on the Ukrainian side, and ditto the war in Gaza, waged by Israel, but paid for and funded and weaponized by the United States. The government of the United States pays for these wars huge amounts of money. Israel and Gaza, for example, and the Ukraine, if you put them together, have cost us already over $100 billion. The government could raise that money by taxing us. If they dared do that, which they don't, but if they dared, then we would be reading in the newspaper not only the grisly details of death and destruction in Ukraine and in Gaza. We would be also reading stories that would explain to the American people that if that's to be paid for by taxes, it'll cost us $300 to $400 per American citizen. That's $1,200, $1,500 per family per year. If you think there's opposition to war now, I can assure you that opposition would be 10 times larger if the people who are paying for it understood it because they got a tax bill. So governments don't do that. They dare not. Instead, they borrow the money because that way they can talk about the war and not have the danger that people understand what it costs and what part of that cost each of us are going to be asked to pay.
姐妹们总烦恼脸上细纹、干燥与暗沉，现在起跟我一起放心交给 KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹系列，它添加5种 EGF， 专门防止肌肤老化，强化皮肤修复，增加肌肤弹性水嫩，轻松抚平皱纹，换回青春自信。KS Royal Face 皇家颜值逆时奇迹，活肤露、全效精华、精华霜，即刻启动冻龄密码。